right, I have a little bit of time, so I'm going to try and get my vocal video done for today. This is me continuing to work through Patsy Rodenberg's The Need for Words, Chapter 5, the very chunky chapter number 5, which seems to hold all the meat of this book. And I did the stressing game, which was using like a simple sentence and kind of doing the stressing on that, and that was an interesting exercise, and one that I should really try and keep in mind when I am doing videos, because it helps actually both slow down my speech, but it also helps kind of with emphasis, with coloring of what I'm trying to communicate. So those are all really useful lessons. However, now the thing, they wanted you to do the same exercise in pairs with short dialogue. I don't have a pair, someone to do it with. I think I'm going to skip that over. The next section is one that I don't know. I don't know if I'm particularly going to do this. I think I'm just going to talk about it. And that'll be my vocal video for this week. It gets a little bit more interesting next week from my perspective. This week it's the language that represses and offends. And he says I would never enter into this work unless I would knew the group very well. I think it's like such a minefield that it's a thing, but it's the idea of I think anyone who uses language publicly must have a greater awareness of how words can be socially and politically damaging. It is easy for us, especially if we are white, to and probably am straight and all that, to desensitize ourselves to other groups of people by using names, phrases, and terms that condescend and mock. We can feel smug and superior to other groups of people, and this attitude surfaces in the way that we name and talk about others. The words we use frequently expose our views of others, whether conditioned or openly believed. Under this category of work comes the language of racism, sexism, ageism, homophobia. So yeah, that's the other thing, is race, gender, how old you are, yeah, what sexual orientation you are, um, you know, all these various things, I think, are really things. And words can speak thoughts that alienate a speaker from a listener, just as they can equalize and harmonize. So list a few words and phrases that you most abhor and would least like to hear used against you, which in some ways is a difficult thing to ask a white dude who is of a certain age in my culture. That is something, like, you can see that somebody who is a different race, just different sexual orientation, um, different age, would have a lot to list. What do I have to list? Because yeah, it's so that is an interesting thing. Are there words or phrases you couldn't say about others? Ones you could. Some you hear every day and let pass without comment, which is like, it's one of these interesting things. Like, I'm 50 years old, and there are words that were used, something like saying the word gyp, or something, or just talking about gypsies. That's like an example that doesn't come up a ton in that that was probably used pretty casually back in the day. Stuff like spaz, all the homophobic slurs that I used as, like, a 10-year-old or 12-year-old, not even knowing what exactly it meant, just it was something bad that you would call other people. All that sort of stuff. Nowadays I think about when I watch people and they use stuff like, oh, a social justice warrior. There's certain kind of key dog whistle phrases that go, oh, you're a right wing person and you're kind of dismissing anyone who's to the left of you. And I mean, I'm sure that, like, calling people racist, or redneck, or being outside of a group and using words that people find offensive. Um, the word queer has been reclaimed by the gay society, and some people just use it as a blanket term for the whole LGBTQ plus a plus, all the various kind of groups within it, because it becomes unwieldy as it gets larger and larger, and just having an umbrella term can be handy and a shortcut to talking. But I know that there's like a lot of people probably my age or older that could feel that that's still a slur word, and especially coming from somebody who's straight presenting, that would be a difficulty. But it's definitely something to think about as you're talking. It's like trying to use words that keep people's minds open about a topic versus using so many shortcuts and phrases that you just shows that you're not particularly thinking very hard about a subject, and also exposes your ignorance. And yeah, I have a lot of things. I have complete blind spots around. I am a white Canadian, 50 plus year old dude. I have got tons and tons of blind spots, and it's only getting older that I realize more and more how vast they are, and that that I think is actually, everybody does have those, and trying to present yourself in a way that you're never going to be free of them, but you try and present yourself as someone who's maybe open to having a discussion about them is a good thing to have. So her ideas were a list a few of the words that you most abhor and would least like hear against you. Are there words or phrases you couldn't say about others? Tons of those. Some you would hear every day and let pass by without comment. Try and do, like, people saying, in Canada, if someone's saying Indian when they're actually meaning, you should be saying like Native or First Nations or something like that. Different things where you try and, like, we actually say that word now. And I'm gonna get into the age where I'm gonna be a geezily old person using out of date language, and you know you'll be the embarrassing uncle. It's bound to happen. Uh, Scout through any tabloid paper and list some of the headlines that express prejudice. Say stop saying everyone should find a piece of paper, explicit or implicit, that illustrates words used in this way. You may have to take time to explain why some of these phrases are offensive. Prejudice can sometimes be deeply subtle. You will always find that members of one group think others are too sensitive if they take offense. It's not always easy to change the way someone uses words that damage and hurt. But bringing that language out in the open at least puts it on display for all to hear and then argue over. One of the greatest crimes committed through this kind of language is the assumption that words don't hurt and that the victim is not experiencing pain. It's interesting about, like, when this was written, because I think there's a lot more open discussion about you shouldn't be using those words. That word hurts. And yeah, equally that backlash of people going, oh, you're too sensitive, or yo, you're calling me a racist because I'm using this word. And it's like, it's interesting that there's a thing, but I can see that, it would be a very tough, very sensitive thing, but probably incredibly enlightening to the more privileged members of a class to have, to hear about what things stick in the craw of those who aren't in a privileged position, because I don't feel at all qualified to make any discoveries or announcements about this is the sort of stuff where you need to sit and listen and go, oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, fuck, I'd never thought about that, and I've just been saying that for years. That kind of stuff. It's like, it's valuable work, and you can, you hopefully, if you actually do that work, you can that can make you a better person in society, make yourself more welcoming to people who aren't white Canadian dudes. Most definitely. She notes surveys among students, and some of them saying some groups can keep back with totals of over 40 instances in a single day. 40 times a day, they are carrying the burden of oppression. Naturally, students who rarely experience this burden, on average once or twice a year perhaps, it's probably me, are generally the ones who believe the rest of us are all being too sensitive on this issue, versus you're getting, it's the what's called microaggressions now, of you're feeling this stuff every single day, many times in a day. Um, but words do carry an offensive power, and no one knows or feels their sting more bitterly than Shakespeare's Shylock, the money-lending Jew in The Merchant of Venice, which some could argue the play itself is actually racist. But I mean, there's a thing of Shakespeare actually investing enough in the character of Shylock that some people have said, like, well, it does actually express that pain at the same time as also maybe perpetuating it. um, Senor Antonio, many a time and oft in the Rialto you have rated me about my moneys and my usances. Still I've borne it with a patient shrug, for sufferance is the badge of all our tribe. You call me misbeliever, cutthroat dog, and spit upon my Jewish gabardine, and all for use of that which is mine own. So yeah, that is a valuable topic. One that I think I try and remain open to when people of different circumstances in my culture, the wide culture, come forward with stuff. I try and keep an open mind to the fact that, you know what, there's a lot of people out there saying, like, they're just belly aching and stuff like that. I try and say, like, no, how about we just listen and try and examine what the words coming out of her mouth are. Oh, someone may be home. So yeah, that's where I am with that. Next time, it's going to be preparing your own speeches, which is going to be a very chunky little section here about how to prepare speeches, which is basically what I do on this channel all the time, is give little mini speeches on video. So definitely going to do careful notes on the next section, and it should be a big one for me. Maybe multi-part. Who knows? All right. I've been Jay. More videos later.